We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
The Afghanistan withdrawal may have permanently tarred President Biden's reputation on foreign affairs. But for those who watch closely, his reputation wasn't all that hot to begin with. How did the president fare in his first year in office, and how is America standing in the world now that these supposed adults are back in charge? Well, to figure out these answers, we're joined once again by former Deputy Undersecretary of Defense Controller, Dave Patterson, to see if the president has been found wanting. Welcome back to the show, Dave.
Thank you, Mark. Happy to be here.
Now, let's cut to the chase, Dave. On a score of 1 to 10, where do you rate President Biden's foreign policy 1 year in office?
A struggling 3.
That's generous for what a lot of people have been saying, even in the usually favorable Biden media. So what are some of the most egregious errors that we've seen during Biden's first year?
Well, I think that the 3 comes from the fact that I'm going to give him more credit. As Woody Allen once said, 80% of life is showing up. So they showed up. But I think the most egregious of the foreign policy gaffes would have to be starting at the very beginning when the negotiations of the START treaty, the new START treaty, that's the strategic arms reduction talks. And before President Biden even got a day into office, he gave President Putin in Russia 5 years to work on this particular problem. And it's a significant strategic problem of nuclear arms limitations, when the previous administration, President Trump's administration, was struggling to give them just 1 year. And that's what Putin had asked for. He wanted a year extension for the negotiations to take place without much pressure. Biden turns around and gives him 5. That's ridiculous.
It almost seems as though you get mugged in a New York park, and then as the mugger's walking away with your wallet, you say, "Hey, you forgot about the $20 stashed down my sock."
Yeah, or my Rolex watch, right?
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, the Biden administration is best characterized by their interim national strategic guidance that they put out. And it is just indicative of how they view the world. You know, it was 23 pages, 17 pages, if you don't count the title page, table of contents, and so forth. And in that 17 pages, they mentioned climate change 27 times. They mentioned China 15 times. So twice as much time was given to the weather than our primary threat, China. And oh, by the way, when it comes to North Korea was mentioned twice. So you don't have much of an understanding of what's really the problem in the world, and it continues from there. That's exactly the way they have continued from actually day 2, if you want to be precise.
Well, let's talk about North Korea briefly. Now, Dave, I'm old enough to remember when President Trump and Kim Jong-un, they stepped happily back and forth across the Korean demilitarized zone. Now, Leader Kim had some fiery Twitter spats with the Donald, and some amusing ones at that, to be fair. But it seems to me that with these recent rocket launches, all that progress, all that familiarity that was breeding between the two nations, it's all been undone. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that's true. I mean, I think that President Kim gets it. He understands who he's talking with, and much in the same way, you know, that the Obama administration presented themselves as somewhat feckless to the North Koreans. So the Biden administration has kept that theme going, and he understands that. Trump, on the other hand, was as perhaps his style was obnoxious. He nonetheless got his point across, and he was believable to the Kim Jong-un administration. They got it. They understood that they needed to do something in order to change the dynamic, and Trump was there to ensure that they did. In fact, after their discussions, the missile tests did stop for quite some time. Only since September have they started.
So, Dave, when Donald Trump was trying to bring North Korea into the international fold, as it were, what he offered was not just threats. It was essentially an offer to make North Korea a rich nation, but not through taking money from poor people in America and giving it to rich people in North Korea, because there are some rich people in North Korea, of course, but more through allowing the economy to flourish, building projects, things like this. And it was a very exciting time. But now it seems that the Biden administration, particularly the foreign affairs administration aspect of that, they seem to be falling back on the idea of, let's take cash dollars that the taxpayer are so generously giving us and putting this to countries that don't necessarily share our interests, don't care about our interests, and in some cases are actively opposed to our interests.
Well, I think it's a matter of basic philosophy. When President Trump came into office, it was, make America great again, America first. He had a very, very clear and unambiguous point of view. And that was evident in how he ran the foreign policy. And so it would be very strange for President Trump to take money from American pockets and give it to North Korean pockets. His point of view is that you can build a country from within and you don't have to buy it from without. And it is just in the same approach he's using in the United States. I mean, Biden is building back broke. I mean, his whole purpose in life is to take from those who produce and give it to those who will not. And it's that simple.
Yeah, now let's get back to the Biden administration here, because we are obviously evaluating Joe Biden after his first year in office. Now, it was a year ago that the media told America that the country's world stage reputation would be restored. But when we see him being corrected by other leaders, gently cajoled along, treated almost like the elderly uncle who's fallen asleep at the dinner table, has the U.S. foreign reputation suffered under this presidency?
Absolutely. And the only reason they treat him like the elderly uncle who has fallen asleep at the dinner table is because that's how he behaves. And you're exactly right. The reputation of the United States has been sullied by this administration's foreign policy. It lacks a strategy. John Bolton, this morning in a large Washington paper op-ed, said that very same thing. Said, Putin understands and has a strategy for the Ukraine. It's too bad that Biden does not.
All right, let's talk about the direction of foreign policy under the Biden administration. What do you see that they see are their key priorities?
Well, I think that their key priorities are just what they say. I mean, they're not bashful. They think they can change the weather in the next 100 years, and that's the most important thing for them. The fact that China, Russia, Iran, North Korea are substantial threats to the United States doesn't seem to bother them as much. And so that's how they behave. I mean, what is another thing that they did when they came into office? Secretary Blinken takes the Houthi militants, the Iran-backed Houthi militants, off the terrorist list. Why would you do that? They are arguably terrorists, as the UAE found out this morning, with a tax on the oil refineries. They just don't get it. They think that they're back in their Ivy League schoolrooms debating foreign policy. They are not. This is a dangerous world, and they don't treat it that way, Mark.
So a very generous 3 from Dave Patterson. Dave, thanks ever so much for being here.
Thank you, Mark. Always happy to talk to you.
Coming up after this short message, we're back talking liberty with Scott D. Cosenza. Has President Biden been good or bad for this country's founding documents? Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
We're doing it for real. Really real. Liberty Nation.
And Jeff Charles, contributor for LibertyNation.com.
I think we're starting to make an impact. Liberty style. Fight for freedom.
Daily tracking poll sponsored by Liberty Nation for Thursday.
Mentioned by Dan Bongino, Rasmussen, Jordan Peterson, and
I
others.
can do it again if you want me to.
Cited in Mark Levin's American Marxism.
I think we're starting to make a really big impact. Get noticed. We're doing it. Rock on. I'm gone.